We're so happy to be here this beautiful but breezy Sunday morning. My name's Malya Levin. This is my husband William, and we together are co-founders of an organization called ACRe, Alliance Community Reboot, which is dedicated to preserving and helping to build Jewish life on the site of the first Jewish farm in America, which is right here. And if it were a tad warmer, we would be outside on the porch and in sight of the beautiful, oh, that's the coffee going off, the beautiful Alliance Mural painted on the building out here. I really, if you haven't seen it already, I encourage everyone to go and check it out because it tells the story of the original immigrants who came here, the later waves of immigration who joined them, and the creation and beautiful flourishing of a Jewish farming community here in South New Jersey, where they were speaking Yiddish. Who would have thought? And today our goal is, together with Rabbi Lazer Mishulovin, who is a native Yiddish speaker and also a now longtime friend and leader in the community, going to talk with us about the life that was here, but really through the lens of Yiddish and Yiddish culture, Yiddish words. We are thankful to the Salem County Historic Commission for a grant that sponsored this event. And we have some fresh coffee that you heard just went off and some treats, baked goods from Kosher Baked Goods over here. So feel free to help yourselves as you're moved to. And we are going to feel free to sort of chime in briefly as we speak, but if you have sort of like extended thoughts or reminiscences that you want to share, we'll have a special time toward the end where we'll share more at length from the audience. So that's kind of how we'll structure it. Last time, if you were here, you'll remember that we had a Zoom option as well. We decided to dispense with that this time and try to really focus on having an in-person conversation and connection. And we're very excited to have you all here. So this is Rabbi Lazer Mishulovin. He is the rabbi at Sons of Jacob here in Vineland. He's also a native Yiddish speaker, as I said. He's taught and written about Yiddish and Yiddish culture for a number of Jewish educational organizations and publications. And now he's here with us. So let's take it away.
Yasher Koyach, thank you very much. Shalom Aleichem, it's good to see everyone here. Wow, that was a very brief introduction and bio of myself. I have to make up for that. I'm going to give you all a lange Megillah, or a ganze Megillah. Helen is shaking her head, she knows what that means. First I want to ask, Jews always ask questions, answer questions. Raise your hand if you speak Yiddish fluently. Mm-hmm. Whoa. We have 2 in the house. Okay, very nice. Raise your hand if you speak a little bit Yiddish, you understand it, your parents spoke a little bit.
There's a few words count.
Okay, the next one is, if you know a few words, if you know a few offensive words. Okay, so we are amongst landsmen, right? Everyone knows landsmen? Landsmen means compatriots, landsmen, people of the same land, people of the same, sharing the same geographic history. How many of you have connection to this area, either South Jersey or, let's start with narrowing it down. How many of you actually have a connection to Norma and Alliance? Wow. So, everyone else, what's your name?
Sorry.
Susan Kaufman.
Susan Kaufman. So you're.
I was originally from this area.
Oh.
And we had relatives that lived in Norma.
Very nice. Okay, so we have a number of you, and how many of you a little broader the South Jersey area? Wow. So we're really amongst landsmen, amongst our kind, and makes me feel a little more comfortable. The question is, who am I? How do I come in here in this picture? So I'm going to give you a little bit of my yichus. The title is Speaking Yiddish to Rabbis. So I'm going to sprinkle some Yiddish so you could go home
With rabbis.
with rabbis. With rabbis. So you could go home with a little bit Yiddish words, Yiddish phrases. So my first word of the day will be yichus. Did anyone hear the word yichus? Yichus. Yichus is from the Hebrew. It means pedigree, prestigious roots, illustrious roots. Someone that comes from a family of rabbis or known scholars, pious Jews. Traditionally had yichus. Now, broader term, if most of you here, all of you here, have yichus. What's my yichus? How do I come here? So yes, I am the rabbi at Sons of Jacob, which is in Vineland, New Jersey, across the river. So I have a connection to this area. It's been now a year and a half here. We have a member here, weekly member, Michael Bernstein from Bitchbert is here. It's nice to see you. But what's my connection to Yiddish and things like that? So my father came here in 1969 from the old country, and his language was Yiddish and is Yiddish. He should be gesund, should be well. And he spoke to us, growing up, he spoke to us in Yiddish. He came from a small group of refugees who lived during the war in Uzbekistan and Samarkand. Most of them left after the war, but there was like a small group that had no choice. They were in Samarkand and Tashkent, and they formed their very strong Jewish community with all the resources needed, including a cheder. And my father never went to school, and he was brought up by parents who came from Belarus. So in the very traditional Jewish old Yiddish cheder upbringing, and that's my way my father raised me here, speaking Yiddish. So that's my connection to Yiddish. My connection to the colony is not necessarily this colony, but I mentioned last time that my grandmother, my mother's mother, grew up in what they call the Russian Jewish colonies at the time, in near Ukraine, more particularly in Crimea, and she remembers songs from Yiddish Kolonistin, and her and her brother used to grow potatoes. So I have a little bit of a connection, so I feel comfortable here. But she used to tell me that her father, who's a rabbi and a teacher, and he would sometimes give musar. Musar is like a rebuke or scolding, because people, his students would talk about their yichus, their pedigree, and he would tell them, in Yiddish, he would tell them, "Was hast du in dem reingelegt?" You're talking about your yichus, your roots, but what did you invest in that? That was just handed to you, given to you, but you have to put in some of your own. And there's a Yiddish saying, I remember this because last time David Fisher mentioned about a Yiddish phrase he knew. You want to share it about David Fisher is a produce.
I didn't say it right.
David Fisher is a produce man, and you know something about some Yiddish words for produce. And how do you say onion in Yiddish? Sibylle. Sibylle. And what's the Yiddish phrase you said?
Was wachsen wie Sibylle. Gail told me I didn't say it right. but when you say it to somebody, they know what you're saying.
David, Rita said.
I don't know.
I didn't.
Just say it.
Was wachsen wie Sibylle in Kopf in Dreh.
That's perfect. It's actually a curse, or it's basically telling someone
This.
Literally, the little translation is one should grow like a sibylle,
Onion?
an onion, with your head in the ground. Yeah, but another word for yichus, this is, I come from the Chabad background. They use the word geza, which is Hebrew for root, and they pronounce it the way it was pronounced in Belarus. Instead of saying geza, they would say gezha. The z, they would say gezha. So amongst some families that come from original Chabad families that come from back from Russia, there is a little bit of this snobbiness called gezha. And gezha literally means root. But the saying was, I don't remember the exact Yiddish saying, that what's good of the roots if it's in the ground. What's important is what grows and what comes out of the ground. So we have roots, and we are all here together, showing that that there's still interest in Jewish life in Vineland, and that for me that's something to celebrate. So that's the word we brought taking out is yichus and tzibele. You want to give an outline of what we were talking about?
Yeah, of course. So last time, I'm sorry because I didn't say this originally, but this is the second of a 4-part series where we're walking through Jewish history here through the lens of Yiddish. So last time we spoke about where they came from, the original settlers, the old country, like Lazer was kind of giving a little bit of a taste of as well, their old world, what their background was when they landed here, and you know, who they were, what the sort of the different movements that kind of originated and brought them here and made them decide to come here and particularly seek out farmland. And today what we're going to do is talk about that initial sort of landing here and then setting up a Jewish farm community. So we add the mural kind of outlines that also. The beginning of the mural, which is kind of a chronological arc, is a burning kind of shtetl is at the beginning. So that kind of signifies the world that we left, and then a boat kind of coming out of that, signifying obviously passage to America. The boat is labeled actually as the SS Australia over there. A number of the original settlers, Jarrett Ross, who many of you may know, he's a genealogist who's also from this area, and he does a lot of very fact-filled presentations about the original settlement here. People always say, I've heard this from many of the family descendants, 43 Jewish families came. That's like the sort of the catchphrase. He says that that's not actually literal. It wasn't 43 that all sort of like came on one boat together. We the 43, like that didn't happen. But it was sort of an original small group that kind of, you know, some of whom literally traveled together, others, you know, all met up around the same time. But it was that sort of that original, around that size of original people who came on ships like the SS Australia. And then we're going to talk about how Ellis Island wasn't built yet in 1882, and the original settlers were coming over, so they came through Castle Garden, which was it's still standing in Battery Park. It's, you know, where immigrants were processed back then before they built Ellis Island. And then the journey
I think it's called Clinton Garden now, or something
Clinton
different.
Garden, yeah.
Interesting.
I know from you were saying Landsman, and I had an association that my dad is big into genealogy as well, and so I know that in New York, or I guess all over the world, when people came here, they had these associations called Landsmannschaften,
Yes.
which I assume means like landsman group. I don't know. Society. Thank you. That were all like, you know, like my dad's family's from De Brummel, so like they had a De Brummel Landsmannschaften, and it was like a social. That was like your social club, like you got together with the other, or the Odessaites, or the, you know, wherever we were talking about people who were from Odessa.
Right.
But now we're going to talk about coming here, what the immigration experience was like, and how they came not to the Lower East Side, like you sort of see the typical immigration story, which is what I think my family had, but journeyed further to South New Jersey, and then what happened from there.
Right. Thank you. So let's use our mural as a reference point, if those that had a chance to see it. If not, on your way out, encourage to see it. So after the shtetl is the Castle Gardens, and then you have after Castle Gardens you have
A field
a field.
with a cow that a lot of people think is a hippopotamus. That it looks like it, but it's a.
Right. Fast forward, you have the portraits of three personalities. So we mentioned this last time. Moses Bayek.
Moses Bake on the west wall. On the east wall is Moses Brotman.
Moses Brotman, Moses Bayek, and Isaac Krasenstein, who you are a great niece of. Great niece, right.
And they
So-
came from Russia?
So each one came from a different area. Moses Bayek originally came from Bialystok, I believe.
Yes.
Which is Ukraine. Ukraine.
Yep.
Isaac Krasenstein is what was called the Chassid of Norma, and he came from Breslov, which was where the Hasidic Breslov group originally comes from. And Moses Brotman came from somewhere in Galicia, don't remember exactly where. So we can imagine they're coming here to America, Castle Garden perhaps. What would take place when they're coming in? So I'm just sharing some anecdotes. I'm not that much of a historian. Did anyone ever, and by the way, we're talking Yiddish, so we're gonna try to travel in that period, and some of this Yiddish stuff we might say may not be what today is accepted to say or talk about, but for the sake of authenticity, I'm going to take the liberties to say it. So probably heard there is a derogatory Jewish word for Jews, kike, right? You know, has anyone ever heard where that came from? Oh, so I didn't know about bagel, but so kike comes from the Yiddish word keikel, which means a circle, like you said. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman and Susan
Kaufman.
Kaufman. Do you know? Do you know the connection between sir?
I thought it was bagels, so I'm obviously wrong.
Oh, bagels is a good one because you know, maybe Bialys or Michael has something to say.
I could be wrong about this, but when you came into the country,
Yes.
wasn't that sort of a symbol that they would stamp on your paperwork if you were from a certain area, or if you were Jewish? It was sort of like a mark.
So a little bit connected to that. So when you filled out the forms, you had to like check boxes, and in those days they would use make a cross to check a box. I think some places in Europe they still do that, like you know,
Like an X.
like an X, but in a cross shape. And Jews were uncomfortable making crosses, so they would make circles, and a circle in Yiddish is a keikel. And you can imagine when, you know, Jews are waiting in line and they're standing in front of bureaucracy and they have to fill out some lines, and they're talking to each other. What should we fill out? What not fill out? What should we hide? So they were saying, you know, keikel da, keikel not schreiber keikel. They heard so the clerks kept on hearing the word keikel. So they called them kikes. That's where the word comes from. Yeah, it's one of those words that the Jews never owned at the end. Sometimes, you know, derogatory racial words Jews owned, but this one they never owned. But it's now it sounds like pretty negative.
There was that classic story. I don't know. There's if anyone's watched Rich Brotman's documentary, First Chapter in a New Book. Rich Brotman is the great grandson of the character who's portrayed on this first wall of the mural, Moses Brotman, His family were very prominent in this area for a long time, starting with Abraham Brotman, who my understanding is owned a clothing factory on the Lower East Side and was persuaded to bring it down here so that the farmers who were beginning to settle in this area had work to do, sort of like to supplement their farming. And that's an interesting topic in and of itself. Like, were they ever really self-sufficient farming? Seems like largely not. But Rich Brotman, who was the great-grandson of Abraham Brotman, grew up here and is a filmmaker, and he made a really lovely film in the early 80s about, he interviewed a lot of the, old-timers at that time, among whom was Harry Levin, who was William's grandfather, the judge, who many people may know or remember or heard of, who lived in this house, and did a long interview with him in the room downstairs here. And in that, and he also had hours of raw footage that he didn't use that he shared with William. So we've been like acquainting ourselves with William's grandfather through this footage. And he tells that classic immigration story. You can tell it.
Everyone knows it,
but
I'm
I just
sure.
think it's funny.
One of you probably could know the classic Yiddish story with when they had to choose a name for coming to this country. I know Andy knows it.
Tell it. Everyone likes to hear a story they already know.
So, but just before that,
Please.
did anyone ever see it's called Hester Street, the movie Hester Street?
Yeah.
The wife came ahead of time with a son, I think, and the husband came a little later, or the other way around. Sorry, maybe the other way around. Anyway, so they were reunited in America, and she couldn't recognize her husband. Why? Because he was beardless. She remembered him in the old country with a beard. So there was something happening with, over between these two continents. Some people, or most people came, probably with the intention to stick to the Judaism, but they already knew ahead of time that coming to America will be very hard to practice the Judaism, be hard to get a job. If you kept the Shabbat, or you had a beard growing. And the anecdote is that on the way, people dropped their film bags in the Atlantic Ocean. I used to think it's an anecdote, but the more I read, it's, it is possible. Like, some people knew that, okay, the new country, it's a new world. We're going to leave the old tradition behind. And of course, you're all familiar with that story. Now, when did they get their American names?
Wait a minute, what happened to the anecdote?
Oh, the anecdote, I said it.
No, that wasn't the anecdote I was referring to.
Oh,
I thought we were on the same page.
yes. So what happened? So when did they get their American names? Is it Ellis Island or later? That I don't know. But some of them already know Joseph was Joe. They already knew when they're going to give their name. They're going to give an American name. So this Jew is standing in line, and he's practicing his American name. I don't know. Let's say it was Mark, and he's telling himself Mark. And then when it comes his turn, they ask him, "What's your name?" And name? Schon vergessen.
No idea.
Sean Ferguson.
I
So-
can tell you that I have had at least 4 or 5 names, and I don't know which ones are on my birth certificate and the naturalization papers. I've had green, black, green, black, green. I mean, there were so many names, I can't tell you which one is the valid one. And that's what they gave us the names a lot of times when we're standing there,
Right.
you know.
Right. I know my my dad, who's a genealogy expert, he says that most of this story sounds obviously sort of like a Baba Misa, another Yiddish term there,
Yes.
one of the few that I know. But he says that most Jews voluntarily picked American names in order to, not to say no one ever was, but in this time, this immigration time, most people who wound up with different names, it was that they themselves wanted to Americanize. It wasn't sort of that.
Translation, like I think mine
Sure.
might have been Grunblatt with two umlauts over the U.
Sure, and they
turned
did,
into
right.
Greenblatt.
Yes, that makes sense, yes.
Or they just didn't understand the question. I mean, the story in my family is it was Vashishinsky, and they asked my great-great-great-grandfather what your name is. He thought they asked him what he did.
Oh.
The word in Yiddish for merchant or German is Kaufmann,
Oh yes,
so Kaufman.
the Yiddish title for
Susan wants me to change it back to Vashishinsky.
That's cool. That's a nice one. I like it, yeah.
the Yiddish title for the Merchant of Venice. One of the Yiddish titles is the Kaufmann from Venezia, or the Seucher from Venezia. Kaufmann and Seucher. Kaufmann is the Yiddish. Seucher is Hebrew, but a lot of Yiddish comes from Hebrew. So Castle Garden, they're here now, right? Now they're here, and you want to talk a little about what
Sure.
that was like?
Yeah, so it seems like they stayed briefly maybe in New York City, but most of them were heading down here pretty quickly. This land was secured, we understand, because really it was not good farmland for the most part. It wasn't even farmland, really. A lot of it was still wooded, and they were tasked with clearing the area before they could even, begin to farm. And I remember William has a show and tell. But they were already financed. We talked a little bit about, last time we talked a little bit about the Baron de Hirsch, who was a, mega philanthropist, if there's such a term, from back in Europe, who funded a number of these Jewish farming colonies all over North America. But then this one in particular was supplemented by wealthy German Jews who lived mostly in New York City and had come in the 1840s, largely related to the gold rush and to seek economic opportunity. Many of them were involved in the cigar business. I don't know if there's a Yiddish word for cigar or tobacco.
Well, in general, they called it Paparossen. Paparossen is cigarettes, right?
There's people with last name Tabak. I grew up with Barry Tabak, and his name meant tobacco.
Tabak, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Here's some of the tools. These are original tools of deforestation. That field across the street, for example, up until the late 1800s, I believe, was forest, if I'm not mistaken. And these are some of the turn of the century tools. It's a lot easier. We expect it to be outside, but this is like a two-man handled tool for cutting down trees, two guys working together, timber saws. But I'm gonna put them out on the porch because they're unwieldy and we have 4 kids here. We'll get to them.
4 kids, 2 saws.
You saw.
There you go. Even better.
You can say you saw it.
And so those philanthropists up in New York City were specifically helping to fund the establishment and initial infrastructure here. So, and it's interesting because a lot of the streets here are named for these guys. So Gershel Avenue is named for Leopold Gershel, who was a well-known, like I said, businessman who lived in New York City and one of the major philanthropists who funded this colony. This street is straight this way. If you look out the window, is Schiff Avenue. Jacob Schiff was like, we listened to a whole Zoom all about the life of Jacob Schiff. He was like one of the big, most prominent New York City Jews. He was like the president of like every Jewish board that existed back then. And same thing, there's other streets right around here, Isaacs, Henry, these were all these prominent 1840s German Jews who it seemed like had this feeling of like, look, these are our fellow co-religionists, as they said in those days, we have to help them, but also like, let's keep them in South New Jersey because, you know,
Wandering the streets.
and I don't know, Lazer, if you can speak to like, I don't know what language they were speaking. I suspect they probably weren't speaking Yiddish. Maybe I don't know if they knew Yiddish. I feel
German,
like
I thought
maybe they
German.
were speaking German, and maybe there was sort of like a, you know, the Yiddish speakers. It's like a little too Jewish, like a little too immigrant-y. There was like a divide where maybe they were like,
Yes.
let's support them down there.
Skyline.
Exactly, they were the religious one. They looked religious, exactly. So
There was a schism between German Jews and Jews of Eastern Europe. It's going back already on the European continent. They called Jews of Eastern Europe, they would call them Ostjuden. Ost is East for German. And the German Jews were already modern, already a nice number of years, way ahead of the Eastern European Jews. They're already well assimilated in their society. And when in America, that still existed, and they were also embarrassed with the language Yiddish, because they thought Yiddish as a corruption of German, and they didn't see it as actually a proper language. They would call it a jargon, not a language, a jargon, or jargon, right? And they were embarrassed of the Yiddish theater. In the Lower East Side, there was a German Jewish community. They would actually protest against the Yiddish theater, very embarrassed about it. And that also, I guess, took place over here.
well, I know William has, and because William's great-great-grandfather, like we said, I think we said, was Moses Bayek, who's one of these three personalities depicted on the mural.
Yeah.
He was one of the original settlers, and he was sort of the go-between between these patrons and the settlers, and he would write to all of them and ask for funding for different projects. Skipping ahead a little bit, as they were sort of trying to, you know, they originally all stayed in one big barracks, and they had different rooms for different families. I don't know if anyone's seen the Susan Donnelly's film Alliance. She's a fellow descendant, and she's a documentary filmmaker, and we saw it together, Norm. She made a documentary called Alliance about what we're talking about now. She filmed several of the interviews for it in this house, actually, but she interviews a professor who talks about how, you know, this was a religious community, and so they had special, like, all the kind of rules they had to make sure, like, each family and couple kind of, like, stayed in their own room, and there was no inappropriate co-mingling, because I think there were rumors of more, like, some of these colonies that got a little more free love ish, but not here. Everything was kosher, but that they, as things then they created these patrons created the Alliance Land Trust, which was an entity that had purchased all this land and that then served as basically a mortgager to divide up and give the families different plots and give them mortgages, but they were supposed to pay back to the land trust over time, ostensibly with the profits from their farming. And so William has these William found among the ephemera in his family some letters from Leopold Gershel to his grandfather and back and forth that seemed to be Moses Bayek asking for further funding to build roads and pave roads and describing how that will be helpful. And the response is they're very cordial letters, you know, especially like with the language of the time, everything's like very flowery. But there's this tone from Gershel of like, we've already given you guys a lot of money. Like, what, aren't you farming? Like, isn't this, like, what's going on here? Like, when are we going to be when is this going to stop? Basically, we paid your taxes, we paid this, we paid that, and okay, we'll send more money, but kind of like this feeling of the whole idea here. One of the ideas was to bring immigrants here and then help them be self-sufficient, and that part was sort of, I think, taking longer than they had hoped.
What kind of occupations were most of them in before they came? They weren't farming because they couldn't own land. They were only paid laborers sometimes. And the rest of the time, they didn't have the skills to know how to even farm, probably.
Right.
As we understand,
We talked about this a little bit last time. I think there's I know, it seemed like some of them were sort of right. I think it's clear that they were not farmers, and we understood that they received some help from the local Italians who were already here who were farming. But I think some of them were probably more like intellectuals. I know Moses Bayek was trained as a lawyer, but also they were, in Rich Brotman's video, I forget who it is, maybe it's Jacob Crystal, I don't remember who it is, who says they were yeshiva buchers. About what they were doing, who these people were. They were not people who were working with their hands. They were sitting and learning Torah as a yeshiva bacher. Someone who, so they were not. We needed a long runway to figure out how to make this work. I think is the point for sure.
I'll jump in here and get on the camera for the record. Norm mentioned Tabak as a last name, and I did some research, maybe you all know this, that most of the patrons whose names are on these streets, Gershel, Mendez, Eppinger, Isaacs, Henry, were all involved in tobacco trade in the 1890s, 1900. And I think some of them famously, like Schiff's brother was, and Jacob Schiff were 49ers. Like they came with the prospect of gold. And if that didn't work out, they were not like out looking for philanthropy. It seems they were out looking for like good business. And managing the Alliance Land Trust for the Baron de Hirsch was not only philanthropic, but I think there was also a business element to it. So I have, these are some letters. So also speaking of tobacco, two things. Number one, we mentioned earlier Castle Garden. It is the name of the intake center on the lower side of Manhattan. But it's the name of the first factory. The colonists named the factory at the corner of Gershel and Menace.
The first dormitory was called, they called it Castle.
They called it Castle Garden. It was like almost like a tribute, tongue in cheek, and then it became a button factory. But some people don't know, for the first year, I believe it was a tobacco roll. They processed tobacco here. They tried it. I read in one of those books, Migdal Zofim, that it didn't work out. But it seems like there may have been the patrons, and I'm just guessing, may have said, hey, tobacco's working for us. Maybe it can work here in Alliance. Didn't seem to work, only lasted a year, but my personal anecdote is that my great-great-uncles, 3 sons of Moses Bayek, Max, Mayer, and Sam Bayek, may have been inspired by this dipping into tobacco dip, you know what I say? And they went off, like as teenagers, young guys. The legend is they walked up the railroad track, which is for which Norma is named. There was a Norma train station here, which went from here to Philadelphia and then to New York City for commerce. And this legend is they hitched to a train to New York City, and there they learned more about the business of tobacco, and then raised enough money to go to Philadelphia and make their own tobacco company. It was called a cigar company called Bayek Brothers Cigars, Bayek Brothers, which then became Philadelphia Cigars. And I have some ephemera from the original Philadelphia. So it was the biggest cigar company in America in the 1900s. And it all started here. And if you've heard of some of our generation know Philly blunts, it's like it was a short cigar, and it was herb today. In urban settings, youth will gut the cigar. They take out most of the tobacco and fill it with marijuana, and then they smoke a Philly blunt. And so that started, you might say, has its roots here. I have some letters.
If you only learned that.
If you only, class dismissed.
Yeah,
We're done. But here's a letter from Leopold Gershel to my great-great-grandfather Moses Beck. And not coincidentally, I found all of these folded up in a small Philly cigar box that my grandfather kept in his library downstairs. And when he died, like most things were given to the Stockton Library, but this was like a personal little stash that my grandfather kept, and I stumbled upon it and opened it a decade later and found these kind of gems. I thought you might be in, these are letters, I think they're like, are they in Yiddish?
Yes.
So I thought you might like to maybe draw inspiration from those. I think they're from Moses to his family when he went on a vacation or something. But I'll pass this around. This is a letter from Gershel to Bayek, saying, "Dear sir, your letter received and has my attention. I submitted the letter to Mr. Eppinger. Soon I shall know, and I will, regarding the Eckhoff matter." So it sounds banal, and it is, but Eckhoff is someone who was behind on paying mortgage, the loan to the trust.
He still got his name on the
yeah, so
synagogue.
like, and then if you look like the dollar values, like I have some, it's like he owed like $5, like, and there was like 10 letters like about collecting $5. This was 1913, so maybe there's somewhere $20 or something, but these go back to 1913. They're over 100 years old. I'll dig up some more gems, but I wanted to give Lazer some material to draw upon for more anecdotes. Let me see.
Yes, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually my specialty in reading, deciphering old Yiddish handwritings. Now, it may sound easy if you think someone grew up with Yiddish, should be able to read Yiddish handwritings, but it turns out that it's not easy. Number one, this handwriting is really clear and consistent, but not always the handwritings are that legible. Number two, a lot of the words don't really exist in today's Yiddish. Either they're from German or from other European languages. Sometimes it may even be English, and it takes real expertise to figure out that it's actually an English word. I remember translating something, and I was like trying to scratch my head and like, what is this? And I would try to like trace every letter and see what it is, and it was not Kalina. You know, so it's a lot of that, I translated letters going for someone, a Yiddish-speaking family that ended up in San Francisco in the early 1900s. And they were journalists too. Their name was Eldon. And from the letters that survived, one of the letters, the family in Russia are writing to the family in San Francisco, "How come you did not tell us about the earthquake?"
Sorry, I can't hear you.
How come you did not tell us about the earthquake? We read about it in the Warsaw Moment. And we want to know if everyone is fine, how you doing. It's like a whole detailed letter. So like a lot of interesting facts throughout the years I came across. And when William told me about his great-great-great-grandfather, I was, naturally attracted to his writings, and it's very enjoyable to see, learn about Moses Beck. So I mentioned last time, how would they call Moses big back in the day? What title could you give him? What type of Jew was he? It wasn't quite a rabbi. Some even questioned if he was fully observant. Looking in the index under his name, I came across some anecdotes about him. Well, it might be about Lashon Hara, William, right?
Statute of limitations has run out.
Well, something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
everyone knows
My family is fine.
about him smoking a Shabbat, perhaps, coming to shul and not taking part in the prayers. There's a conversation between his daughter Bluma and and her father Moses. Why don't you say the prayers? I came across one of his books. He said basically the prayers are in my heart. But at the same time, he was a scholar. He wrote and printed so many books on Jewish thought in Hebrew, and he was very well grammarian, and he wrote Hebrew very well, and he knew the text, and his the subjects, a lot of it is about like Jewish thought, like mystical Jewish thought, talking about the origin of life, and from the rabbi's point of view. One of the letters he writes to another Jewish scientist about
In Yiddish?
in Hebrew, about whether the world, the sun revolves around the world, or the world, or the
Earth revolves around.
Earth revolves around the sun, and he takes a very strong position of. You would think, as a enlightened person, he would say that the Earth revolves around the sun, but he's saying science does not know, and he makes references to Galileo and Copernicus, and he's very strong that the sun revolves around the Earth.
Really?
And his writings also, he's writing like during wartime. He's writing like Jewish apocalyptic thing, like God is orchestrating this and hoping that this is going to be a solution, and so it's a very interesting combination which you don't really find today. So on one hand, we called him a maskil. A maskil, it means enlightened fellow, and on the other hand, he was a yid. I don't know what more to say about that, and.
I want to share something that may help you here, Rabbi. This
Yes.
is, and by the way, we haven't really fully gone through all of this. There's hundreds of documents, so we're going through it together.
Yeah.
But this is a letter. This is a tort.
Tort, yeah.
This is a tort. So Malya is a lawyer, and I'm a descendant, and the rabbi is a translator and Talmud scholar, and maybe you can find something of interest here. This is a handwritten tort from the year 1922, written by Moses Bayek, who is known as a justice of the peace here in this township. And it says the defendant postured their 3 cows on the plaintiff's hayfield daily since the beginning of spring and damaged the hayfields in a sum of $25 dated on this day, 16th day, 1922. I'm gonna pass it around after Malya takes a look, but that to me is a very Talmudic.
It's so funny because it's like referencing my dad again, he teaches Talmud a lot, and like his whole intro very commonly is like, the Talmud is very relatable and it's a modern document, and you read 3 cows, it doesn't mean 3 cows. It's a metaphor that can apply to damages and interpersonal relationships of all time, but of all kinds, but like then sometimes it literally is 3 cows. Right? It's just like, for us, we spend so
Draw
much
something
time
from that, and I'm gonna bring in more show and tell for that.
we spend so much time talking about how it is a metaphor, but that in this context, it's not a metaphor, it's literal. He has beautiful handwriting, I'll say that.
Is that in English?
It's in English, yeah. It looks like something that was being filed as a legal document. I mean,
This was this was Moses Bayeks. I believe it got attached to ox or work horses. So I was just reminded. This is from the settlers. Yeah, it's heavy, so I'm not going to pass it around. These things will be on the porch when we go outside later. Cool.
Yeah, it's signed M. Bayek, Justice of the Peace at the bottom, and it's this guy, Morris Weinberg. He's the one claiming that the cows damaged his field, his hay field.
Does he give a location?
Yeah.
Does he give a location?
The audience.
Weinberg's lived on Garden Road. I'm looking at the other side here.
Your storage is full.
Harrietta is the defendant. Does anyone know that name?
Who?
Oh, no. Harrietta is the first name. I'm sorry. Oh, I wonder if this might be in Lonletana. Maybe it's not a Jewish farmer.
There was Yeglers.
And Elon, it's two defendants. Interesting. I'm trying to see if there's a location. It just says, Salem County, Pittsgrove Township. Any legal terms in Yiddish? I wonder if he seems quite familiar with this pool. Well, it's 1922 already, so this is like 40 years after they've already been here.
Rabbi, what's the linguistic foundation of Yiddish? I mean, where does it come from?
For the most part, the words actually come mostly from German. But among scholars, they want to say that there was influences also from Eastern languages, especially like with some of the grammar and. I'm not a historian or a scholar of Yiddish. I could just share with you things I read. I guess the most widespread belief comes from German. Just let's leave it pashut and simple without getting complicated. But what word were you asking?
Oh, I was just asking about any legal language. In Yiddish, I mean, this is all very fluent. It's very fluent English, so there's not much Yiddish to talk about here. But
I'm more comfortable with Yiddish. So what I actually did was, the National Hebrew Library in Jerusalem has all Jewish periodicals scanned, going like in Hebrew or Yiddish or any other language. From America and from Europe, from Israel, and you could search, and they scanned it, so you could actually search by name. So I searched some of the names of the people here. I searched actually all three. I searched Bayek and Krasenstein and Rotman, but I didn't find anything on the other ones. But on Bayek, I found a lot. One of them is quite a interesting story. Which we're not going to share this time because I don't have the copy and it might be of a later period, but just to keep you excited, the title is The Messiah of Norma. And there was a scandal here, a Messiah of Norma, and William's grandfather was a judge at the time, Harry Levin, solved some of the issues, so stay tuned for that. But I also came across Yiddish letters from Moses Bayek to the Yiddish Farmer, was a Yiddish periodical, the Jewish Farmer, and in this one he writes, die Erfahrung von ein Farmer, the experience of a farmer. Es soll sehr gut gewesen für unsere jüdische Farmer, sie sollen haben 10-jährige Praktik. It will be very good for the Jewish farmer to have 10 years of practice, of before they werden Farmer, before they become farmers. Weil die Praktik, was der Farmer lernt mit der Zeit, kostet ihm zu teuer. Because if he would do practic on the job, it'll cost him a lot. Und der fleißigste Arbeit verliert, and he would lose the flow of work. Manches Mal sein Energie und Geduld durch die verlorene Zeit. Many times his energy and patience gets lost with time. Und schwere umsonste Arbeit. And there's a lot of in vain work. Bis bekommt die Praktik until he gets the practice. So he should do it 10 years before. Those that speak Yiddish, were you able to follow?
Yeah.
So there's actually a lot of the German words in here. It's not the Yiddish I grew up with, but it's a more sophisticated Yiddish like manche, Erfahrung. Manche means many. Erfahrung is experience. And then you go
more sophisticated Yiddish, like more German.
So it means like a Yiddish of someone that's well read, and a lot of the literature usually tends to have more German words. Ich hab dieses selbst. Now he goes into 3 examples of what does it take to grow. Some of it is not copied well over here. And maybe some of you can help me because I don't know. See, I didn't grow up with botany, so I don't know these Yiddish words either. Green peaches. It's peaches. Green is green, right? Green peaches. Oh, peaches! You're growing peaches, Norman.
Well, Bluma Purnell grew peaches here because she talks about protecting the peach trees with soap.
Soap?
Fells naphtha soap.
Bluma Purnell was Moses Bayek's daughter.
Oh, I know
Yeah,
Bloom. Okay.
The younger.
Oh, so he's talking from first-hand experience. Grüne peaches, und bevor sie werden reif, before they become ripe, fangen sie an zu fäulen. They start to fall. Fäulen und fallen. Fäulen und fallen.
No, it starts
Und fallen herunter. What?
They start to rot before they rot.
Right, fäulen become rot. Und wenn der Farmer is schon ja glücklich, and when the farmer is glücklich, you know the word glück? Luck. When the farmer has mazel, und hat schon viel peaches, dann ist kein Preis im Market. Weil in der Zeit von Peaches kommen euch on Market alle andere Sommerfrüchte. Well, when the peaches are ripe, then is kein Preis im Market. I guess he can't sell it for a good price because when the peaches are ripe, all the other summer fruits are sold then. Ich glaube, als jeder Einzige wird jetzt verstehen. Now I believe that everyone will understand as this Land nicht zu pflanzen peaches zum Verkauf außer für eigenem Gebrauch. It's not worth planting peaches for selling, only for own personal needs, like Norman does.
Oh wow.
By the way, Norman has a farm stand on Crow Road outside. What do you have now? Go
So
pop.
that didn't have a Jewish name, that road, because that was part of Union Grove. That's where Alliance ended.
Oh,
So like Henry was the last street going west. That's what I learned recently.
interesting. So that was the Goyish gas.
Yeah, but it had Jewish farmers there, like Sam Rothman.
Uh-huh.
It was sort of like overflow area into Union Grove.
You guys want to hear more of this? There's like 2 more examples.
Yeah.
I want to, if you're going with random matters here, just going back to one thing I wanted to share now, and I'll pass it around. Here's from 1913, Gershel communicating with Bayek. I thought this was cool because we spoke about it. Dear sir, I've been informed that under our charter, we are not allowed to build any factories. We are only to keep in the line of agriculture. You may inform Mr. Eskin. I have one letter from you, which I have not answered. I will do so soon. And then there's more on the matter of Eskin owing some money. But it just shows you more about the business nature of all that was from 1913. Thought that was a cool finding. You know, there's little arguments happening. It wasn't all.
So basically, stay farm, no business.
Yeah, they were like trying to make it turn into something
instead of
profitable. Yeah.
Thank you. After that English break, we may now return to our regular program, and now in Yiddish. Those that remember Yiddish radio, that's what actually. Yes,
I just have an observation. The person who's writing that letter
Moses be it.
is speaking in German.
No,
And
oh.
He is speaking in German.
Okay.
That is German. He's writing in Yiddish or Hebrew. No, in Yiddish, but he's speaking in German. Most of those words are pure German.
So a lot of these words are pure German. Again, we're getting into this argument. This is a form of Yiddish, especially in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You know, I translate letters and I can tell where the letters are from. Letters from the Austro-Hungarian Empire used a lot more German, and in German also pronunciation, also spelling. For example, the summer here is Zumer, right? It's spelled with two mems. So it's Zomer, right? It divides the syllable. And Kommen is two mems. So that's very Germanic. So you're right.
Well,
But I'm still gonna say it's Yiddish. But
that is High German.
there is
And Yiddish is more Mitteldeutsch. Okay?
right. So there is. I mean, whenever you speak about Yiddish, you'll have different opinions. The question is, for example, what did Rothschild speak? Right. So there's a Rothschild historian. I don't know if he's still alive. His name is Amos Alon. He wrote us a book on Israel founders and sons. And he names the language that Rothschild taught, Judendeutsch. Judendeutsch, which means Jewish German, right? But Yiddish, a purist will take offense at that. You know, it may be early Yiddish, but it's still Yiddish, and you know it goes back and forth. This is a lot later. Okay, number 2. Pflanzen sie euch keine Flammenbäume. It's, you know, you're right. The more even the grammar here is pretty German. Pflanzen sie euch keine Flammenbäume. You know where you put the. Well, we're not going to get into that. The translator literally, and this is not the way Yiddish writes it. They also plant not Flammenbäumen. Plum trees. Weil sehr selten, wenn ein Farmer in New Jersey versucht, seine eigene Flammenfrichte, it's very rare for a farmer in New Jersey to taste his own plum trees, plum fruits. Von Verkäufen ist kein Rede. And let's not even talk about selling. Das hat noch nicht getroffen. It never happened that we sell it. Norman sells beach plums. Die Ursache davon ist, the reason for this, weil wir haben Waren und Herbst. We have Waren and Herbst, warm and Herbst is fall. Und die Flammen halt noch dann wie sie warfen herunter die Blätter. Und die Flammenholz noch I'm sorry. The Flammenholz, the plum trunk
Yeah, Flamenholz is the plum wood, the wood.
Wood, right?
Okay,
Waarvan noemt die blätter? They drop the leaves,
no, the plums are dropping into the leaves. The blätter is leaves, right?
Right.
The flammen kommen up in the blätter. So they're falling into the leaves.
okay, and that happens
They're
in the
dropping onto the ground, is what that sounds like.
right. Tragen sie
Happens twice.
tragen sie in Herbst, aber Malzblumen, Malzblumen, don't know what it is, und grüne Blätter. In fall they have Malzblumen,
Moles.
Moles.
Moles, like the animals.
Little
Oh, Malzblumen.
like little rats.
Yeah.
right there.
And green leaves. Und das schwacht up die Fruchtblumen, and this weakens the fruit
Bloom.
the fruit bloom von spring of the spring. Und dann kommen die Insekten, welche lieben die Flammen, the insects come, they like the plums, wenn sie sind noch green, when they like it when it's green, und verdorben sie, bevor sie werden reif, and they make it verdorben. Another Yiddish word, verdorben is like also disgrace. A person could be a verdorben.
Can't eat 'em?
A low life is also called a verdorben. It becomes unpleasant, ruined. Und es bleibt kein zum Versuchen. Nothing is left to taste. So we have time for one more?
What should we be planting, Moses?
One more small one. 3. Dasselbe is mit, this one here, I'm gonna need your help, is mit Quinces.
Quinces?
Quinces.
Yeah.
She's using the English.
Listen, I'm a Yiddish translator.
No, the Unterschied, the difference is die Quinces geben auf Blumen der ganze Sommer. Quinces give blossom all summer, aber keine Quinces in 10 Jahre habe ich bekommen, aber keine Quinces. But they,
Flowers all summer, but they don't make quince.
right, thank you.
I have a couple of those.
Is that true?
This is exactly the translation.
You don't get quince in the fall?
So far not, but I moved one, we'll see what happens.
In 10 Jahren habe ich bekommen von 20 Quinces Bäumen bloß 3 Früchte. In 10 years, out of 20 quinces trees, I only got 3 fruits.
You'll get quince.
This is a very funny letter. Like, when is he going to say what to plant?
And it keeps the plants from bearing fruit in this area. On the West Coast, you can grow them. In Russia, you can grow them. That's a famous fruit for Russia, but it's not here.
They make jelly out of
So this is an example. This is all example that if you don't have the experience, they were learning on the job, and this is all the failures.
That's why
So
he
it says
started with you should have 10 years of
10 years
experience.
So now,
Do all this.
now response
The
to
flower right now. I mean, when does it fruit? It takes all summer.
now the moment we've all been waiting for.
Yes.
Nur schrecken sie sich nicht, lieber Freund. Don't Shrek. You know the movie Shrek? It's actually a Yiddish word. Don't Shrek. Don't have any fear, beloved friends. Liebe Freund, beloved friends. Shrek.
Shrek.
The cedar twigs.
Shrek.
Don't be afraid.
Man kann sein a farmer.
You can become a farmer, yeah. go ahead.
Yes, man kann sein a farmer. No, this is not for Gail and Norman because they're already farmers.
Yeah.
So they could talk. Man kann sein a farmer on peaches. You be a farmer without peaches, on flammen, without plums, on quinces. Der wir haben dafür in New Jersey gute. Now, what are you gonna guess? Which fruits are good there? Apples is the first one.
Tomatoes.
Uh,
Watermelon.
what?
Blueberries, yeah.
See, there's a word here I don't know. Bieden.
Beaten. What's this beaten?
Beets.
It's a little blurred. It could be bieren, bieden, or beet.
Berries.
Berries. Berries.
Oh, maybe. No, the next one is Kirschen. I think Kirschen are berries.
Cherries.
Cherries. Okay.
Cherries.
Maybe Bieren is berries, Kirschen is cherries. No, now he says verschiedene berries.
Ah.
So I don't know what Bieren is. Und wie euch. Meine Erfahrungen von die Berries und Grapes, welche seien bei uns der Hauptfrüchte. In my experience, berries and grapes are the Hauptfrüchte, the main fruits here. Will ich schreiben in nächsten Sommer. I'll write about it next summer. So it's come back. I couldn't.
It's a cliffhanger.
I actually I couldn't find it. I was looking for it. I couldn't find it. I looked in the next. But now, I always thought it said next number. I looked the next issue, but next summer. So that means he wrote about it a year later, because I guess he's waiting for the results. So this is an example here, and since we spoke about grapes, should we talk about Jewish life here, or we don't have a few more minutes?
Yeah, well, we can wrap it up with that.
Was that of any interest?
You didn't show this yet. It's just a cool. It's a letter to Moses Bayek. It looks like it's in Yiddish. I didn't show it to the rabbi, but it's on stationery from Belesteski, Pittsburgh Stogies and Cigars, and it says L'kavod Yedidi Moshe Bayek.
Look at that. You can read it.
And it's addressed, and it's dated as Vayakel Pekude, which is the parsha, the Torah portion of the week. So it's a very
He knew the Torah portion, and he went to the shul, even though he pretended.
What is the? Does it say anything?
I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I just wanted to show. I don't know if there's anything to see the content. I think it's Yiddish after that.
There's more on the back.
Yes.
Yeah. It's some reference to something. The person sent him a poem. He's in a lyre, a poem, and
he got a few books to
confirming
preview and ask for forewords. I think Moses Bayek.
This person is ranked the most Bayek.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he makes an interesting reference to about poetry and Jewish sources. This is from Zev Karistansky.
It was cool stationery.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, because we talked about grapes now. So they made also wine here, right? Wine and grape juice. And I opened up that book over there, and there is from Bluma.
Bayek, Purnell, Rappaport.
Writing, or that's another descendant writing. Henry, I think Harry. Harry. Harry writes in first person. He writes that the girls in Norma had pretty legs. Their legs were purple. Why were they purple? From crushing grapes. My Elta Zeta, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother's father, had a purple shirt, which is another story. He would make wine, and here they're talking about their purple legs. What else do we leave out? So we can't.
Isaac Krasenstein, if you can.
Yeah, Krasenstein, right? So we have since we have here Bonnie. So
he's depicted as the shochet of the town.
Yes.
On the mural.
We had quite a discussion about how to depict him.
Yes.
Because
There's a
we wanted to
thing-
encap.
Yes, I mean he seems like he was like a big figure in the town, not prolific writer like Moses Bayek, but was like a big sort of a leader and kind of like spiritual presence in the community, and he was known as Isaac Krasenstein. He was the sexton of the cemetery.
yes, the Shamish. Yes.
So he was the caretaker there.
Yes.
Does that mean caretaker?
Yes.
Or
Shamish is also the middle candle in the Hanukkah menorah because you serve the rest of the candles, and the caretaker in the shul, the one that put away the prayer books, made sure that the shul has the candles it needs, lit the candles, make sure it has the wine. And they did not have a hand in decision making. There's a famous Yiddish joke that perhaps it was during the high holidays. The rabbi the rabbi would talk, preach, and there was a thing back, one of the things that was, sorry, just gathering my thoughts. One of the, for amongst like, you heard the Musar movement? The Musar movement is where there was some yeshivas where they put a big emphasis on character refinement. And one of the biggest things is about practicing humility and being humble. So there was this joke that a rabbi in the shul was preaching and talking how really he's really nothing, he's humble, he's a nothing and nothing. You're shaking your head, you know this. And then as he's saying this, the gabbai maybe, the next thing, the ones that sit up there on the eastern wall, like Tevye said, the Mizrach Zayt, he said, I'm also nothing, I'm also not nothing. And then the Shamish gets up and says, I'm also nothing. So the rabbi turns to the gabbai and says, look who thinks he's a nothing. So nothing actually means garnished. And there's a song from the Fergusons, not that I know this band, but I know it from this song. So I guess a 1960s rock and roll band. And they have a song called Nothing. And it goes like this. Maybe you know the tune. Sunday, nothing. Monday, nothing. Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing. Friday, nothing. Saturday, nothing, 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 nothing. Anyone know that? Oh, so where does this song come from?
That song was from the Fugs.
Fugs.
Fugs did that
I'm
song.
sorry, why did I say the Fergusons? Because of Sean Ferguson.
They were like the 60s.
Yes. I don't know if they were Jewish or not, but it sounds, the way they're singing it sounds like, what we call a Fabrengen, where people are like, I'm on nothing, I'm on nothing. So the tune comes from, it's a Yiddish tune, bulbous, and it goes like, Sonntag, bulbes, Montag, bulbes, Dienstag und Mittwoch, bulbes, Donnerstag, bulbes, Freitag, bulbes, Shabbos, a kigele von bulbes. Bulbes is the Belarusian word for potatoes. What is this song? I don't know what this song, what's the meaning of the song?
That's all they had to eat.
It's all they had to eat, but it's really about yeshiva boys. There was some arrangement. This yeshiva could not afford to have meals for them. So in town, they had the balabatim, which were their homeowners, though they were able to afford it. Balabatim literally means homeowners. They would sponsor meals for the bachrim. So each bacher would go to another house every day of the week. It was called Essen Tag. It's called Essen Tag. They eat days. So Sunday they would go to Mr. Brotman. Monday they would go to Mr. Big, but that was in the old country. But what did they serve them every day was the same thing. So that was bulbes, and then Shabbos, kigele from bulbes. So balabatim is another word you could leave from. That I thought of Mr. Broughton to be called a balabas. A balabas was also is a homeowner, but it's like a bourgeoisie status. It's like a contrast to the worker man, the worker man is the balabas, the boss.
I always heard it as being usually a woman who was organizing.
Of course, how can we leave out? I'm sorry if I left out the one. That's the balabasta. That's the balabasta. Yeah, the balabasta is the homemaker. The balabas was the man. There is actually a Yiddish film called the Vilna Balabessel with what's his name, Moshe Oisher. If you heard of him, the Yiddish cantor and actor, and a lot of Yiddish films that were made in America were actually made in this area, South Jersey or New York. I've actually read that in that book. Tevye Milker, Tevye the Dairyman, the black and white one, was made in Long Island, but other ones might have been made here. It'd be interesting to find out which ones. I thought to end with, again, going back to Isaac Krasenstein and the religious life here, a paragraph from this book. Although old Hasid, he was called a Hasid Krasenstein, still persisted in calling the community to rise at midnight for the traditional slichot, penitential service before the New Year. Right, the week before New Year, they would rise for slichot. Each fall, the response grew weaker. This is the history of the place. They're traditionally in towns. My grandmother said she remembers there was a town, a veker, which was probably the town crier, that would wake people up for services, and especially slichas. My grandmother remembers that someone would go to all the homes and knock on the windows and say, Vekel Eden, wake up Eden, kumul avodas habayre, come wake up for the service of Hashem. And it was a yearly thing, and he would do it over here in right, maybe even this window right over here. Pioneer Eli Backerman stoked the coal fires of the synagogue in winter, carried water to the diminished congregation, and each day rounded up volunteers for the thrice daily minyan. At least the Hasidim and Mitnagdim were those that were not Hasidim. Here they translated as Talmudists. Moses Beg, I think, comes from a line of Mitnagdim. Were drawn closer. This is the time of year they were drawn closer because we need each other for a minyan. You know, we can't even form our separate minyans anymore, even if only by necessity. On Simchat Torah, now I heard from a neighbor here, Mr. Meyerfeld, who lives down the block. He remembers at Simchat Torah, those that were the shul down the block on Norma would come to this shul here for one of the services, dancing down the block, and then for another service, I think they would go back. So this place was really happening on Simchat Torah. On Simchat Torah, here's another chassid. I never heard of him. Chassid Alterman. Anyone ever heard of Alterman? I don't know. I have to look in the index. Chassid Alterman and friends would lead in celebrating the Torah annual completion and beginning, that's Simchat Torah, with prayer, dance, chant, and even some schnapps. Even some schnapps to drink, to express the congregation's boundless joy in God's gift. While Simcha Heilig, like typical Vilna Mitnagid, celebrated the same occasion with more scholarly restraint. Nahum Heilig is a descendant of him. He lived down in Broughtonville, I think. Mm-hmm. Other people know him as Neil? Nolan. I met him last week. I lived next to him in Philadelphia.
And if you really want to get him angry, you refer to him as Snooky, which was how he was known as a young guy.
So he told me that Heilig original name was Kadosh. Kadosh is Heilig. Yeah, Heilig means holy. Kadosh is Heilig. So as much as there was this thing between Mitnagid and Chassid in these very blocks over here, they formed a bond, and we have to wrap it up now. But next time we'll talk a little bit more about the synagogue life here, the names of the synagogue, and of course the Messiah of Norma. Stay tuned to that episode. Not next summer, but what's the date?
1 month, the last Sunday of May.
Memorial Day weekend, Sunday, the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, I think it's the 27th.
Sounds right.
Is our third of our 4 classes back here. Hopefully it'll be nice enough to be on the porch, but you're all welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you also to the Salem County Historic Commission
Yes.
For sponsoring us. We have some donation stock box here if anybody's moved to contribute to programming like this and to the shul and ACRe. Yeah, there's more coffee and treats. So
Yes.
The rabbi's here to.
And if anyone wants to continue to schmooze,
And we'll be here if anyone wants a little.
this ends the
feel free to stay and hang out.
this is the official part.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Towards the side.